Welcome to Monk's Moon Temple. Your mind generates approximately 60,000 thoughts every single day. Scientists have studied this, measured it, confirmed what contemplatives have known for thousands of years. The mind is endlessly active, constantly producing mental content from the moment you wake until the moment you fall asleep. Most of these thoughts pass through awareness like leaves floating down a river, here for a moment, then gone, leaving no trace behind. But some thoughts don't float away. Some thoughts get stuck. They catch on branches in your mind and remain there, playing on repeat. The thoughts about your worth, about your past mistakes, about your uncertain future. The thoughts that tell you you're not enough, that something is wrong with you, that disaster is just around the corner. These thoughts replay endlessly, and each time they replay, they generate another wave of emotion, another surge of anxiety, another layer of suffering. This is the human condition. Not that difficult things happen, they always will. But that the mind takes difficult moments and multiplies them into endless suffering through the process of thinking about them. You know this experience intimately. Something small happens, a comment from a colleague, a memory that surfaces unbidden, a moment of uncertainty about the future. And within seconds, your mind has constructed an entire narrative complete with characters, plot, conflict, and a tragic ending. The original moment was neutral or only slightly uncomfortable. The mind's elaboration turned it into suffering. The good news, and it is genuinely good news, is that this process can be understood. It can be seen clearly. And in that seeing, its power over you begins to dissolve. The Buddha devoted his entire teaching career to this one essential insight. Suffering is real, but the mind multiplies suffering through its own activity. Freedom is not found in changing the world so that nothing difficult ever happens. Freedom is found in changing your relationship to the mind's activity, in seeing thoughts as thoughts rather than as reality, in resting as the awareness that witnesses thinking rather than as the thinker who is controlled by thinking. This is not a philosophical position to adopt. It's a direct observation to be made, moment by moment, thought by thought. Over the course of our time together, you'll encounter people whose minds have become prisons. Not people different from you. Just ordinary humans caught in patterns of thinking that created unbearable suffering. And you'll witness the precise moments when those prison doors opened. Not because their circumstances changed. Not because they became perfect beings. Because they finally saw what thoughts actually are and where they exist in relation to those thoughts. You'll discover why your negative thoughts feel so convincing, why they carry such emotional weight, why they seem to be telling you truth rather than merely offering commentary. You'll see the mechanism that gives them power, and you'll learn the single shift in perception that makes them lose their grip. The peace you're seeking isn't somewhere else, in some future moment when you finally get everything right. It's here now, hidden only by misunderstanding about what you are and what thoughts are. Let's clear that misunderstanding together. There's a phenomenon that happens in human suffering that psychologists now call cognitive fusion. It's when you become so fused with your thoughts that you can no longer distinguish between the thought and the reality it claims to represent. The thought, "I'm a failure," arises, and instead of recognizing it as a mental event, you experience it as an objective fact about who you are. The thought, "Something terrible is going to happen," arises, and instead of seeing it as a prediction your mind has generated, you experience it as a genuine preview of the future. This fusion is the engine of psychological suffering. It takes the mind's natural activity, its endless production of thoughts, and turns that activity into a source of constant pain. A woman named Elena discovered this through devastating personal experience. Elena was a gifted painter whose work had been exhibited in galleries across the country. She had spent decades developing her craft, building a reputation, creating art that moved people. Then she developed a tremor in her right hand, the hand she used to paint. It started small, barely noticeable, but gradually worsened until holding a brush steady became nearly impossible. The physical condition was real and genuinely difficult. She consulted doctors, tried treatments, explored every option. Nothing helped. The tremor remained. This was the first arrow, the genuine difficulty of losing a physical capacity essential to her life's work. But what happened next was where thinking became torture. Elena's mind began its relentless elaboration. I'll never paint again. Everything I've built is gone. My career is over. Who am I if not an artist? I'm worthless now. I should have painted more when I could. I took my ability for granted and now it's gone forever. People will forget me. I'll be remembered as someone who couldn't finish what they started. These thoughts played on endless loop, each repetition generating fresh waves of grief, anxiety, and despair. Elena wasn't just experiencing the genuine loss of a physical capacity. She was experiencing the mind's multiplication of that loss into thousands of imagined catastrophes, identity crises, and self-judgments. The first arrow was real. The subsequent arrows were optional, but she didn't know that yet. This is what negative thinking does. It takes one genuine difficulty and generates endless mental suffering on top of it. The original situation is manageable, or at least bearable. The mind's elaboration makes it unbearable. When you cannot separate yourself from your thoughts, when you are fused with every mental event that arises, you become vulnerable to whatever the mind produces. And the mind, left to its own habitual patterns, produces suffering with astonishing efficiency. If what you're hearing resonates with something deep inside you, if you sense that freedom from negative thinking might be possible, please take a moment to subscribe to Monk's Moon Temple. Each week we explore these teachings together, offering practical wisdom for living with more peace and less suffering. Subscribe now and join our community of seekers walking this path together. There's a voice that lives in your head. You know it well. It speaks with absolute certainty about your shortcomings. You're not trying hard enough. You always mess things up. Everyone else can handle this, why can't you? You're fundamentally flawed in some way that everyone can see except you. This isn't occasional self-reflection. This is a relentless internal prosecutor that reviews every action, interprets every interaction, and finds you guilty over and over again. The commentary never stops. Even when you're trying to sleep, it reviews the day's mistakes. Even when you're doing something enjoyable, it whispers that you don't deserve this pleasure. What makes this voice so exhausting is how convincing it sounds. It doesn't present itself as one possible interpretation among many. It presents itself as objective reality. And because it's coming from inside your own head, questioning it feels like denying the truth. A woman named Priya came to a meditation center after decades of this internal voice dominating her life. She was successful by any external measure, a respected physician, married with children, active in her community. But internally she was at war with herself. The commentary in her mind was constant and brutal. During a quiet moment at work, she would think, "You're going to miss something important. You're going to make a mistake and someone will die." During interactions with colleagues, she would think, they can tell you don't really know what you're doing. At home with her family, she would think, you're not present enough. They deserve better than you. Priya wasn't just living her life. She was simultaneously trying to defend herself against her own thoughts. Every moment became a trial where she was both the accused and the prosecutor, and the verdict was always guilty. At the meditation center, a teacher asked her a simple question. Who is being judged? Priya was confused. I am. I'm the one who's not good enough. And who is doing the judging? The teacher asked. Also me, Priya said, feeling the absurdity even as she spoke. I'm judging myself. The teacher smiled gently. So one part of you judges another part of you. Which one is the real you? Priya opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. She didn't know. When she tried to locate this self that was being judged, all she found were thoughts, feelings, sensations, but no solid thing that could be called Priya in any permanent sense. And when she tried to locate the self that was judging, again just thoughts arising, harsh thoughts, critical thoughts, but still just thoughts appearing in awareness. The teacher continued, you're treating thought patterns as if they're making accurate statements about a real fixed thing called you. But look carefully at your actual experience. What you call Priya is a flow of phenomena. Sensations arising and passing. Thoughts appearing and disappearing. Emotions forming and dissolving. No separate thing stands apart from this flow that can be judged. Right now, the teacher said, notice the breath moving in your body. Is the breath Priya? Is the sensation of sitting Priya? Is the sound of my voice Priya? Where is this solid permanent thing that your thoughts claim to be describing? Priya looked, and the more closely she looked, the less she could find any fixed self to judge. Hearing was happening, but no hearer that could be called inadequate. Thinking was happening, but no thinker that could be deemed a failure. Breathing was happening, but no permanent entity doing the breathing that could be found lacking. The harsh judgments arise, the teacher explained, because of confusion about what's actually happening. Thoughts appear that claim to be describing a real solid you. And then other thoughts appear that judge this imaginary solid thing as inadequate. But both the image being judged and the judge doing the judging are just thought patterns appearing temporarily in awareness. It's like watching a movie where one character criticizes another character, and you become so absorbed in the drama that you've forgotten you're watching a movie. The characters seem real while the film runs, but when you step back and see it as a movie, the whole thing loses its power to convince you. Priya began practicing with this understanding. When harsh self-judgment arose, instead of either believing it or fighting against it, she simply observed, this is a thought pattern appearing. It's claiming to describe something solid and permanent called me. But when I look for this solid thing, it's not there. Just this moment's experience arising, existing briefly, passing away. At first, the judgmental thoughts continued arising just as strongly. But something had shifted in how she related to them. Instead of experiencing them as truth about Priya, she experienced them as temporary mental events. No more solid or permanent than a cloud passing through the sky. The thought said, you're going to make a mistake. But when she looked for the solid you that was supposedly going to make mistakes, she found only breath moving, body sitting, awareness knowing. The thought said, you're not good enough. But when she searched for this permanent inadequate self, she found only phenomena flowing, seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling. None of it solid enough to be called Priya in any lasting way. This wasn't positive thinking replacing negative thinking. It was something more fundamental. Seeing through the basic confusion that makes self-judgment possible. Self-judgment requires a solid self that can be judged and thoughts that can deliver accurate verdicts about this self. But when Priya looked carefully at her actual experience, she couldn't find either. No fixed thing to judge existed, and the judging thoughts themselves were just more temporary phenomena flowing through awareness. Over time, as this understanding deepened, the harsh commentary lost its grip. Thoughts of inadequacy still arose. Patterns have momentum. But they no longer had the same convincing quality. They were like actors in a play. She was no longer absorbed in characters speaking lines that couldn't touch what she actually was. There's a particular pattern of thinking that psychologists call catastrophic thinking. It's the mind's tendency to take an ambiguous situation and immediately generate the worst possible interpretation, then react to that interpretation as if it's already happening. A friend doesn't respond to a text immediately. Your mind constructs, they're angry with me. I must have done something wrong. This friendship is ending. I'll lose everyone. A manager schedules a meeting with you. Your mind constructs, I'm in trouble. They're going to criticize my work. I might get fired. I'll lose my income, my home, everything. A slight physical sensation appears. Your mind constructs, this could be serious. It might be cancer. I need to see a doctor immediately. What if it's too late? In each case, the trigger is small and ambiguous. The response is enormous and catastrophic. And the suffering generated by the catastrophic thinking is often far greater than anything that actually ends up happening. A man named David understood this through painful experience. David was a financial analyst whose job required monitoring markets for potential risks. He was good at his work because his mind naturally scanned for what could go wrong. But this same capacity had leaked into every area of his life. He couldn't relax because his mind was always scanning for threats. On vacation, he'd worry about work. At dinner with friends, he'd worry about whether they really liked him. At home with his family, he'd worry about their safety, their future, their health. His mind was constantly generating worst-case scenarios and he was constantly living in those scenarios rather than in his actual life. One evening, his teenage daughter was 20 minutes late coming home from a friend's house. David's mind immediately constructed an elaborate catastrophe. Car accident. Hospital. Phone call from police. Funeral. The rest of his life without her. By the time she walked through the door, apologizing for losing track of time, David was emotionally exhausted and physically shaking. His daughter was fine. Nothing had happened. But David had just spent 20 minutes living through her death and his subsequent grief. His body had experienced all of it. His nervous system had responded as if the catastrophe was real. This is the mechanism of catastrophic thinking. The event hasn't happened. It may never happen. But your body responds as if it's happening right now. Your mind constructs a vivid scenario and your entire system treats that scenario as current reality. The suffering is real even though the catastrophe is imagined. David sought help from a therapist who introduced him to a simple practice. When catastrophic thoughts arose, he would pause and ask 3 questions. What is actually happening right now? What evidence do I have that this thought is true? What would I tell a friend who was having this same thought? The first question brought his attention back from the imagined future to the present moment. Right now, his daughter wasn't home yet. That was the actual situation. Not the car accident, not the hospital, not the funeral. Those existed only in his mind. The second question distinguished between the thoughts felt certainty and actual evidence. His thought said, "She's been in an accident." The evidence was that she was 20 minutes late. That was all. No phone call from police. No reports of accidents on the route she would have taken. Just 20 minutes of lateness that could be explained by 100 innocent reasons. The third question gave him perspective. If a friend told him, "My daughter is 20 minutes late, she must have been in a fatal accident," David would recognize immediately that his friend was catastrophizing. He would offer reassurance, perspective, comfort. He could offer the same to himself. Over time, this practice weakened the grip of catastrophic thinking. Not because David stopped having catastrophic thoughts entirely. His mind continued generating worst-case scenarios. That was its habit. But he no longer believed every scenario his mind generated. He could notice, there's the catastrophe thought again, without being swept away by it. In the Buddhist tradition, there's a teaching about a man who saw a rope in the dark and mistook it for a snake. His heart raced. His body flooded with fear. He ran in terror from a danger that didn't exist. When someone brought a lamp and showed him it was only a rope, his fear vanished instantly. The rope hadn't changed. Only his perception had changed. Catastrophic thinking is exactly this. You mistake a rope for a snake and suffer as if the snake is real. The practice is to bring the lamp of awareness, to look closely at what's actually there rather than what your mind projects onto it. The rope may still be there. Life has genuine difficulties. But the snake, the imagined catastrophe, dissolves when seen clearly for what it is. Your mind will continue generating threat scenarios. That's what minds do. They're prediction machines, constantly scanning for what might go wrong. The problem isn't that threat scenarios arise. The problem is that you believe them and respond to them as if they're already happening. When you can see catastrophic thinking as mental events rather than as accurate predictions, you regain the ability to respond to actual situations rather than to imagined disasters. The daughter comes home 20 minutes late. That's the actual situation. You can address that, perhaps with a conversation about communication, perhaps with understanding about teenagers losing track of time. But you don't have to live through her death and your grief in the 20 minutes before she arrives. That suffering is optional. It's created by the mind, not by reality. There's another pattern of thinking that causes immense suffering, and it's the opposite of catastrophic thinking in one important way. Instead of projecting into an imagined future, it gets stuck in an unchangeable past. Psychologists call this rumination. It's the repetitive, stuck quality of a mind that can't let go of what's already finished. You replay the conversation where you said the wrong thing. You analyze what you should have done differently. You imagine alternate outcomes that will never occur. You revisit the relationship that ended, examining every moment for clues about where it went wrong. The replaying feels purposeful. It feels like you're working through something, making progress toward understanding. But rumination is circular, not linear. You're not moving toward understanding. You're walking the same mental path over and over, wearing a groove deeper into your consciousness with each repetition. There's a crucial difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection examines the past to learn from it, then moves forward. Reflection asks, what can I understand from this experience? What can I carry forward? Reflection has a purpose and an end point. Rumination has no end point. It circles endlessly through the same material without arriving anywhere new. A man named Marcus understood this through years of personal experience. Marcus had been a talented musician in his 20s, part of a band that seemed on the verge of breaking through. They'd recorded an album, played shows to growing audiences, attracted interest from a small label. Then internal conflicts tore the band apart. Arguments about creative direction, about money, about credit for songs. The band dissolved. The album was never released. That was 15 years ago. Marcus was now a successful music teacher, working with young musicians. He had a wife he loved, children he adored, students who respected him. By any reasonable measure, his life was good. But his mind was not present in this good life. His mind was stuck 15 years in the past, endlessly replaying the band's dissolution. He'd lie awake at night replaying arguments, thinking of better things he could have said, different choices he could have made. He'd imagine alternate timelines where the band stayed together, where the album came out, where they became successful. He'd feel the grief of that lost dream as acutely as if it had happened yesterday. The rumination wasn't helping him process anything. It was keeping him trapped. It was stealing his presence from the life he actually had. One day, a student asked Marcus about a difficult decision in her own musical life. She was trying to decide whether to pursue music professionally or keep it as a passion. Marcus heard himself giving wise advice about learning from past experiences without being controlled by them, about making the best decision you can and then moving forward without endless second-guessing. As he spoke, he realized he wasn't applying any of this wisdom to his own life. He was still second-guessing decisions made 15 years ago. He was still trapped in rumination about a past he couldn't change. That night, he sat with his rumination in a new way. Instead of being inside it, replaying the arguments again, he observed it from outside. He noticed how the rumination loop began with a trigger, perhaps hearing a song from that era. Then the loop would start. First the memory of the argument. Then the thought about what he should have said. Then the imagined alternate scenario. Then the grief that the alternate scenario never happened. Then the judgment about being stuck in the past. Then the memory of the argument again. Round and round, the same sequence, the same emotions, the same exhaustion. He saw clearly that this loop had been running for 15 years and had never once changed anything. It had never produced a new insight that helped him heal. It had never led to resolution. It had only kept him trapped, cycling through the same material endlessly while his actual life passed by unnoticed. He asked himself a simple question. Is this replaying serving me, or is it keeping me trapped? The honest answer was immediate. It was keeping him trapped. It was stealing his presence from the life he actually had, the wife who loved him, the children who needed him, the students he could help, the music he could still make. None of that was available to him when he was lost in the rumination loop. He made a commitment to himself. When the rumination loop started, he would recognize it for what it was and gently redirect his attention to something actually present. Not by fighting the thoughts, but by acknowledging them and then deliberately choosing something else. The thought would come, remember when the band broke up? He would acknowledge, yes, that happened. I still feel sad about it. Then he would deliberately bring his attention to something in his present moment. The feeling of his hands on a guitar. The sound of his children playing. The sensation of his breath moving. The thought would return. It always did. And he would acknowledge it again and return his attention to the present again. Over time, something shifted. The rumination loop still triggered, but it had less power. It was like a scratched record that kept skipping, but he no longer had to listen to it. He could notice it skipping and choose to focus on something else. The past hadn't changed. The band still broke up. The album was still unreleased. But his relationship to that past had changed. He was no longer living in it. He was living in his actual life, with brief visits from memory rather than permanent residence in rumination. This is the freedom available to you as well. The past happened. You can't change that. But you can choose how much of your present awareness to invest in repetitive loops about what's already complete. The past will call you back repeatedly. Your mind will offer the familiar groove of the rumination loop. And each time you can choose to follow that loop one more time or redirect your attention to the life that's actually happening now. There's a particular kind of negative thinking that attaches itself to your physical appearance. You stand before a mirror and examine your reflection with a scrutiny you'd never apply to anyone else. You catalog every flaw, every sign of aging, every deviation from whatever impossible standard your mind has constructed. Your thoughts spiral into harsh judgments about how you look, and these judgments bleed into judgments about your worth as a person. Or perhaps it's not your own eyes judging you. Perhaps it's the constant awareness of being looked at, evaluated, reduced to your physical appearance by others. You walk through the world feeling like your body is public property, subject to commentary and assessment, and you can't escape the weight of all those eyes. This preoccupation with appearance consumes enormous mental energy. It shapes how you move through the world, what you avoid, what you pursue, how you feel about yourself on any given day. A woman named Serena had struggled with appearance-based thinking her entire adult life. She'd been a model in her 20s, valued entirely for her physical appearance, constantly evaluated, constantly found either adequate or inadequate based on how she looked on any given day. Even after leaving that industry, the habit of harsh self-scrutiny remained. She couldn't pass a mirror without checking her reflection, without finding something wrong. She couldn't walk into a room without feeling the weight of others' evaluations, without imagining what they were thinking about how she looked. The mental energy consumed by this was exhausting. She'd spend hours getting ready for simple events, then spend the entire event monitoring how she thought she was being perceived. She'd avoid situations where she might be seen in unflattering light. She'd turn down invitations, miss opportunities, shrink her life to avoid the pain of being judged. In a moment of desperation, she attended a retreat focused on Buddhist psychology. She expected teachings about self-acceptance, about learning to love her body as it was. What she received was something far more radical. A teacher asked the group a question. What are you, fundamentally? Serena answered with her name. The teacher shook her head. That's a label given to you by others. What are you, fundamentally, before all labels and concepts? Serena didn't know how to answer. The teacher continued. Close your eyes and notice your direct experience right now. What do you find? Serena closed her eyes. She felt the air on her skin. She heard birds outside the window. She noticed thoughts arising about whether she was doing this right. She felt the sensation of her breath moving in her body. "What do you find?" the teacher asked again. "Sensations, sounds, thoughts," Serena said. "Is any of that you?" the teacher asked. "Is the sensation on your skin you? Is the sound of birds you? Is the thought about whether you're doing this right you?" Serena considered. The sensations were happening, but they weren't her. They were just experiences occurring. The sounds were happening, but they weren't her. They were just phenomena arising. The thoughts were happening, but they weren't her. They were just mental events appearing and disappearing. "Then what are you?" the teacher asked again. Serena sat in silence. She couldn't find anything solid to call herself. There was just this flow of experience, sensations, sounds, thoughts, all arising and passing, with no fixed self at the center. The teacher spoke again. "If you can't find a solid, permanent self when you look directly at your experience, then what is it that you're judging when you stand before a mirror? What is it that you believe others are evaluating? What is this self that rises and falls based on how a temporary physical form appears on any given day?" Serena felt something shift. She'd spent her entire life trying to make this imaginary self acceptable, trying to get this imaginary self approved by others, trying to protect this imaginary self from judgment. But when she looked directly, she couldn't find any such self at all. There was just the flowing river of experience, with no fixed entity at the center that could be judged. This wasn't philosophy. It was direct observation of her actual experience. She could see that thoughts about her appearance arose. "You look tired today. Your skin is breaking out. You should have worn something different." These thoughts appeared in awareness. But the awareness in which they appeared was not itself tired, not breaking out, not wearing anything. It was just the clear space in which all these thoughts appeared and disappeared. She could feel the emotion of shame when these thoughts arose. The shame was real. It had physical sensations, a heaviness in her chest, a warmth in her face. But the awareness that experienced the shame was not itself ashamed. It was just the space in which shame appeared, existed for a time, and eventually passed. She could feel the imagined weight of others' gazes, the sense of being evaluated and found wanting. But the awareness that experienced this sensation was not itself evaluated or wanting. It was just the space in which all these experiences arose. Over time, Serena's relationship to her appearance transformed. Not because she learned to think positive thoughts about how she looked. Not because she finally achieved some standard of beauty that satisfied her. Because she saw through the fundamental confusion that made appearance-based suffering possible in the first place. There was no solid self to be judged. There was just this flow of experience, with no fixed entity at the center. The thoughts about appearance still arose. Old habits have momentum. But they no longer had the same weight. They were like clouds passing through a clear sky, appearing for a moment, then dissolving, unable to define or limit what the sky actually was. There's another voice that lives in your head, and it's perhaps the most convincing of all. The voice of doubt. It speaks not with harsh judgment but with apparent reason. It presents itself as honest assessment, as realistic evaluation, as the voice of wisdom protecting you from disappointment. You want to try something new, learn a skill, start a project, pursue an opportunity, speak up in a meeting, create something meaningful. And immediately a voice arises. You're not ready for this. You don't have what it takes. What if you fail and everyone sees? Better to wait until you're more prepared. Better to stay where it's safe. The voice sounds reasonable. It sounds like prudence, like wisdom, like self-awareness. But this voice is not wisdom. It's doubt wearing the mask of reason. And its function is not to protect you. Its function is to keep you trapped. A young woman named Talia encountered this voice whenever she approached anything that mattered to her. Talia was a writer, or at least she wanted to be a writer. She'd dreamed of writing a novel since childhood. She had notebooks full of ideas, characters she'd developed, scenes she'd imagined. But whenever she sat down to actually write, the doubt voice would appear. Who do you think you are? You don't have anything original to say. There are millions of people trying to write novels. What makes you think you're special? You'll write something mediocre and everyone will see how ordinary you are. Better not to try at all than to try and fail publicly. Talia would close her notebook and find something else to do. This pattern repeated for years. The doubt voice was so convincing because it seemed to be telling her the truth. It seemed to be protecting her from the pain of failure, from the humiliation of public judgment. But what it was actually doing was keeping her from ever discovering what she was capable of. The doubt voice doesn't just appear around creative work. It appears around career changes, around relationships, around personal growth, around any endeavor that involves risk, vulnerability, or the possibility of failure. It's the voice that says, "You can't do this," just before you try. It's the voice that says, "You're not smart enough," just before you learn something new. It's the voice that says, "People like you don't succeed at things like this," just before you prove otherwise. In the Buddhist tradition, this voice is personified as Mara, the tempter, the one who appears at crucial moments to undermine confidence and sow doubt. Mara doesn't appear as an obvious enemy. He appears as a reasonable voice, offering seemingly sensible advice to turn back, to give up, to stay safe. When the Buddha was sitting under the Bodhi tree on the night of his awakening, Mara appeared and argued with him. "What makes you think you can do this? Countless beings have tried and failed. You're not special. Give up this impossible pursuit and go back to your comfortable life." The Buddha didn't argue with Mara. He didn't try to prove his worthiness or defend his capability. He simply reached down and touched the earth, calling the earth itself as witness to his right to be there. This gesture is profound. The Buddha wasn't arguing with doubt on doubt's terms. He wasn't trying to prove himself worthy. He was simply grounding himself in present moment reality, touching the earth, connecting with what was actually true rather than getting lost in the doubt voice's arguments. Talia eventually encountered a teacher who helped her understand this. The teacher asked, "When the doubt voice speaks, what happens if you simply notice it without arguing or obeying?" Talia didn't understand. The teacher explained, "The doubt voice wants one of two things. It wants you to engage with it, to argue with it, to try to prove it wrong. Or it wants you to obey it, to give up, to stay safe. Both responses keep you trapped in its game. Either you're fighting it or you're following it. Either way, it's controlling you. What's the third option? Talia asked. The third option is to see it clearly for what it is. Not wisdom, not truth, not accurate assessment, but doubt itself, a mental habit, a pattern of thinking that arises in certain situations. When you see it clearly, you can acknowledge it without being controlled by it. Ah, there's the doubt voice again. Interesting how it always shows up when I'm about to do something meaningful. Then you can continue with what you were doing anyway. Talia tried this. She sat down to write, and the doubt voice began its familiar monologue. You can't do this. Who do you think you are? This is going to be terrible. Instead of arguing with it, instead of obeying it, she simply noted, doubt is speaking right now. Then she picked up her pen and wrote one sentence. The doubt voice continued. That sentence is terrible. You should stop now before you embarrass yourself. She noted, more doubt, and wrote another sentence. The doubt voice escalated. This is pointless. You're wasting your time. Nothing will come of this. She noted, still doubt, and kept writing. The doubt voice didn't disappear. It kept speaking throughout that entire writing session. But Talia had found a new relationship to it. She wasn't fighting it or following it. She was simply acknowledging it as mental noise and continuing her work. Over time, the doubt voice's power diminished. Not because it stopped speaking, but because Talia stopped giving it authority over her actions. She learned that she could feel doubt and act anyway. She could hear the voice saying, you can't do this, and do it anyway. She could experience the fear of failure and write anyway. This is the essential insight about doubt. Doubt is not evidence of inadequacy. The presence of doubt doesn't tell you anything about your actual capabilities. It tells you that your mind has learned to doubt as a protective strategy. The doubt arises not because you're about to fail, but because you're about to try something that matters, and trying something that matters triggers the fear response. When you can see doubt, as a mental event rather than as truth, you're free to act despite its presence. There's a teaching in Buddhist psychology about 5 visitors that arrive in every human mind. They arrive uninvited, without asking permission, and they make themselves at home. These visitors are not problems to be solved. They're not signs that something has gone wrong. They're simply what arises in an untrained mind. Learning to recognize them clearly, without being controlled by them, is the essence of mental training. The first visitor is desire. Not just desire for obvious things, but the constant reaching, the sense that something is missing, the pull towards some imagined satisfaction that's just out of reach. Desire appears as restlessness, as dissatisfaction with what is, as the endless seeking for something more. The second visitor is aversion. This is desire's opposite, but equally problematic. Aversion appears as irritation, as resistance, as the sense that something is wrong with what's happening. When aversion visits, the mind becomes obsessed with what it doesn't want. It pushes against reality, complains about circumstances, blames others for discomfort. The third visitor is sloth, often called drowsiness or torpor. This is the heavy, foggy state where the mind feels thick, unable to focus, pulled towards sleep or zoning out. Sloth visits when the mind wants to escape, when something feels too difficult to face directly. The fourth visitor is restlessness, also called worry. This is the spinning mind, the endless jumping from thought to thought, the anxiety that can't settle anywhere. The fifth visitor is doubt. Not the healthy questioning that leads to investigation, but the undermining doubt that questions everything. Doubt questions the path, questions your capacity, questions whether any of this is worthwhile. These 5 visitors arrive constantly. They're not personal failings. They're what minds do. A man named Gabriel encountered these visitors daily in his meditation practice, but also in his ordinary life. Gabriel was a high school teacher who loved his work but found it exhausting. He'd sit down to prepare lessons, and desire would visit, pulling his attention toward fantasies about a different career. He'd try to focus on his students during class, and aversion would visit, irritation at their behavior. He'd try to engage with difficult material, and sloth would descend, his mind fogging over. He'd lie down to rest at night, and restlessness would take over, his mind spinning through tomorrow's tasks. And underlying all of this, doubt would whisper, "What's the point? You're not making a difference." Gabriel thought these visitors were problems to eliminate. He thought that if he could just get rid of desire, Gabriel thought these visitors were problems to eliminate. He thought that if he could just get rid of desire, he'd finally be content. If he could just eliminate aversion, he'd finally be at peace. If he could just overcome sloth, he'd finally be productive. If he could just stop restlessness, he'd finally be calm. If he could just silence doubt, he'd finally be confident. He spent enormous energy fighting these visitors, and they only seemed to get stronger. The more he fought desire, the more obsessive it became. The more he resisted aversion, the more irritable he felt. The more he tried to push through sloth, the heavier it got. The more he struggled with restlessness, the more frantic his mind became. The more he argued with doubt, the more convincing it sounded. A colleague who practiced meditation shared a different perspective. "These aren't enemies to defeat," she said. "They're visitors to recognize. When desire arrives, you don't have to fight it or follow it. You can simply notice, desire is here. When aversion appears, you don't have to resist it or express it. You can simply notice, aversion is present. When sloth descends, you can notice, sloth is here, and take practical steps if needed. When restlessness spins, you can notice, restlessness is operating. When doubt whispers, you can notice, doubt has arrived." Gabriel began practicing this way. When desire pulled his attention during lesson planning, he'd pause and note, desire is here, wanting something different. He'd feel the pull, the dissatisfaction. Then he'd gently return his attention to the lesson plan. Desire didn't immediately disappear, but it no longer controlled him. When aversion arose during class, irritation at a student's behavior, he'd note, aversion is here, resisting what's happening. He'd feel the tightness in his chest. Then he'd return his attention to teaching. When sloth descended during difficult work, he'd note, sloth is here, wanting to escape. He'd feel the heaviness, the fog. Sometimes he'd take a brief walk. Sometimes he'd simply continue working while noting the presence of sloth. When restlessness took over at night, he'd note, restlessness is here, spinning. He'd feel the anxiety, the racing thoughts. Then he'd bring his attention to his breath, not to stop the restlessness, but to have something stable to rest in while restlessness did its dance. When doubt whispered its undermining messages, he'd note, doubt is here, questioning. He'd feel the uncertainty. Then he'd continue his practice anyway. Over time, Gabriel's relationship to these 5 visitors transformed. They still arrived. They always will. That's what minds do. But they no longer ran his life. He could recognize them clearly, see them for what they were, and choose his response rather than being unconsciously driven by whichever visitor happened to be present. This is the essence of mental freedom. Not the absence of difficult mental states, but the capacity to see them clearly and respond wisely rather than reacting automatically. The visitors will keep coming. Desire will return. Aversion will appear. Sloth will descend. Restlessness will spin. Doubt will whisper. But you don't have to be controlled by any of them. You can learn to recognize each one as it arrives, to see it clearly, to hold it in awareness without being swept away. And in that recognition, in that clear seeing, the visitors lose their power to run your life. They become what they always were, temporary visitors passing through the vast space of your awareness, unable to take up permanent residence unless you invite them to stay. There's a final teaching that underlies everything we've explored together. It's the recognition of what you actually are beneath all the thinking, all the judging, all the doubting, all the suffering. A woman named Amara discovered this recognition through devastating personal experience. Amara had survived horrors that most people cannot imagine. As a child in a war-torn country, she'd witnessed the deaths of her parents and siblings. She'd spent years in refugee camps, experienced violence and deprivation, lost everyone she'd ever loved. By the time she reached safety in a new country, she was carrying trauma that would have broken most people completely. She spent years in therapy, years trying to heal, years working with the memories that haunted her. And she made progress. The flashbacks became less frequent. The nightmares less intense. She built a new life, found work, made friends, even learned to trust again. But underneath all of this, there was a persistent belief that she was fundamentally damaged. That her experiences had broken something essential in her that could never be fully repaired. That she was, at her core, contaminated by what she'd been through. This belief wasn't something she consciously chose. It was deeper than thought, a felt sense of being fundamentally flawed, irreparably harmed, stained by trauma in a way that could never be washed clean. It colored everything. It limited how much she could trust happiness when it appeared. It whispered that any good thing would eventually be taken away because she didn't deserve it. It made her feel separate from others who hadn't experienced what she had, as if she belonged to a different category of human being. At a meditation retreat focused on Buddhist psychology, a teacher asked participants to close their eyes and notice their direct experience. Notice the breath moving in your body, the teacher said. Notice sensations arising and passing. Notice sounds coming and going. Notice thoughts appearing and disappearing. Amara followed along, noticing all of this. Then the teacher said something that stopped her completely. Now notice the awareness in which all of this is happening. The space that holds the breath, the sensations, the sounds, the thoughts. Is that awareness damaged by what it holds? Amara sat with this question. She noticed her breath. Her breath was not damaged, just moving. She noticed sensations in her body. Some were pleasant, some unpleasant, but the awareness that knew them was neither pleasant nor unpleasant. It was just knowing. She noticed thoughts arising. Thoughts about the past, about trauma, about being damaged. These thoughts appeared in awareness. But the awareness that held them was not itself damaged. It was just the space in which thoughts appeared. She noticed emotions arising. Grief, fear, sadness. These moved through awareness like weather through sky. But the awareness itself was not grieving, not afraid, not sad. It was just the space in which emotions arose and passed. For the first time in her life, Amara saw clearly that the damage she believed was at her core was not at her core at all. It was in the content that moved through awareness, not in awareness itself. The thoughts about being damaged were thoughts, not reality. The emotions about being broken were emotions, not the fundamental nature of who she was. Beneath all of this, the awareness itself remained clear, untouched, pristine. This wasn't denial of her trauma. The trauma had happened. Its effects were real. She carried memories that would always be part of her history. But the awareness that held those memories, the basic capacity to know, to be conscious, to experience, this had never been damaged by anything she'd experienced. It remained what it always was. Clear like sky, open like space, untouched by whatever passed through it. This recognition didn't erase her trauma. It didn't make the memories disappear or the emotions vanish. But it transformed her relationship to all of it. The belief that she was fundamentally damaged, that belief was seen through. She saw it for what it was. A thought pattern, not truth. A story she'd been telling herself, not reality. And in that seeing, something fundamental shifted. She was not her trauma. She was not her memories. She was not her pain. She was the awareness in which all of this appeared. And that awareness had never been touched. It had witnessed everything, held everything, known everything, but remained itself unchanged. This is the deepest teaching about who you are. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your memories. You are not your trauma. You are not your mistakes. You are not anything that can be named or described or judged. You are the awareness in which all of these things appear. And that awareness has never been damaged, never been stained, never been broken. It remains what it always was. Clear, open, pristine. The clouds pass through the sky. Storms rage, winds blow, rain falls. But the sky itself remains unchanged. It doesn't become stormy. It doesn't become cloudy. It remains the clear space in which all weather happens. You are the sky, not the weather. You are the awareness, not the thoughts and emotions that move through it. This recognition is not something you achieve. It's something you see. It's been true all along, hidden only by your identification with the content of awareness rather than awareness itself. When you see this clearly, directly, not as philosophy but as direct perception, everything changes. The negative thoughts still arise. The difficult emotions still come. The painful memories still surface. But they no longer define you. They no longer convince you that you're damaged or broken or unworthy. They're just weather passing through the sky. And you are the sky itself, vast, open, clear, untouched by whatever passes through. You've now encountered these teachings through stories of people whose minds had become prisons. People like Elena, trapped in catastrophic thinking about her future. Like Priya, tormented by an internal prosecutor. Like David, whose mind generated endless disaster scenarios. Like Marcus, stuck in rumination about a past he couldn't change. Like Serena, imprisoned by appearance-based thinking. Like Talia, undermined by doubt that masqueraded as wisdom. Like Gabriel, controlled by the 5 visitors that arrive in every mind. Like Amara, who believed she was fundamentally damaged by trauma. Each of these people discovered the same truth. They were not their thoughts. They were the awareness in which thoughts appeared. They were not the weather passing through. They were the sky itself. And this discovery, this shift from being controlled by thoughts to witnessing them clearly, is available to you right now. Not as a distant goal, but as simple recognition of what's already true. You are aware of reading these words. Something in you knows that these words are appearing in your consciousness. That knowing, that awareness, is what you fundamentally are. Notice that awareness right now. Is it damaged? Is it inadequate? Is it failing? Is it anything that can be judged? Or is it simply present, clear, open, knowing? This awareness has been with you through everything. Through every joy, every sorrow, every success, every failure. It has witnessed it all without ever being stained by any of it. The thoughts will keep coming. Your mind will continue generating 60,000 of them every day. Many will be negative. Many will be self-critical. Many will be fearful. That's what minds do. But you now have a choice. You can continue believing every thought, being controlled by every mental event. Or you can learn to see thoughts, as temporary appearances in awareness, as clouds passing through the sky. You can rest as the awareness itself, untouched by whatever passes through. This is the freedom these teachings offer. Not freedom from thoughts, but freedom from being controlled by them. Not freedom from difficult emotions, but freedom from being defined by them. May you know this freedom. May you rest as the sky, not the weather. May you live with peace, with clarity, with the deep recognition of what you've always been. The awareness that witnesses all, holds all, knows all, and remains forever untouched. Thank you for being here at Monk's Moon Temple. May your path be peaceful. May your heart be open. May your mind be free.